Today is Tuesday, May 20th, and the conference finals are ready to go. We welcome you back on the Frozen Edge, your daily home for a deeper dive into the analytics behind the NHL's betting market, helping you craft your picks, props, and parlays as the chase for sports' greatest trophy is now one round closer. He's Timo Seppa, former senior manager of hockey analytics for the NHL. I'm Casey Ditzel. Timo, we're down to four teams here: Carolina and Florida, Dallas, and Edmonton. And it's getting excited as we get closer and closer to this Stanley Cup.
Yeah, we got in these two conference finals, we have four legitimate cup contenders. No pretenders have made it this far. These are four teams that shouldn't surprise anybody that they've gotten this far. Looking forward to breaking down the first one of these matchups here today.
Well, in true Toronto Maple Leafs fashion, they were booed off the ice after Game 7. I think a lot of that comes down to the performance of the Florida Panthers. But let's start with the home team for this series. We're going to go through our Eastern Conference final preview today. Tomorrow will be our Western Conference preview. But on the East, it's the Carolina Hurricanes. Here is the top seed, 99 points in the regular season, and Florida coming in just 1 point shy, 98. That could be a massive storyline here with the Hurricanes' success on home ice. They're 8-2 this postseason, 5-0 so far at home. And another, notable thing, they've gone through both of their first two rounds in just 5 games. Florida had to play to 7 there against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Their conference final odds for the Hurricanes plus 110. They are the least favorited team out of the four, plus 325 as the long shot odds to win the cup. And Timo, how much weight do you put on a couple of those factors? The home ice, number one, and in the limited amount of games, limited guys that are banged up out of this lineup.
Yeah, I think all of those things are in there. I think the home ice advantage is interesting. I think you definitely want to minimize the wear, so that's another small advantage there. However, you see the odds favoring Florida, and that's obviously because they have a proven track record of making it to the Cup final 2 years in a row and winning it last year. So, yeah, I think that's what we're seeing there.
A couple of notable injuries. Jalen Chatfield currently listed as out. Rod Brind'Amour saying nothing serious there, but he did miss Game 5 after Brind'Amour had also hinted that it wasn't something that was going to keep him out. Mark Jankowski is day-to-day. He hasn't been necessarily a key factor in the lineup. Also, Alexander Nikishin took over his NHL debut in the playoffs in Chatfield's absence and looked pretty good in Game 1, a guy who's been chalked up to be similar to Cal McCarr. So we'll see if he gets the nod to start this series, if Chatfield will be back. Those are a couple of questions. The Panthers, as you mentioned, are the favorite in this series, minus 130. Their Stanley Cup odds sit at plus 250, Timo, and they got it done. It didn't look pretty necessarily. They trailed 2-0. The Leaf fans were claiming they had won the cup already, and they stormed back. All of a sudden, a 3-2 lead, dropped the game at home at Sunrise, and then won on the road. That's something that stands out. They're 4-2 on the road so far in the postseason in their 8-4 record, just 3-2 at home. And that's going to have to combat Carolina's strength at home, because if they can win a couple of these road games, that could be their key to success. The defending champions, back-to-back trips to the Cup Finals.
Yeah, I like the fact that Florida is 4-2 away. That might help offset Carolina's home success, and obviously the fact that Carolina has home ice as well.
Looking at the Conn Smythe, you got to think Freddie Anderson is going to have to be a game breaker if Carolina is going to move on. He's the favorite out of the Hurricanes, plus 500 odds. So that's a pick I really like. If you're thinking Carolina might win the cup, Freddie Anderson at a little bit longer odds. I think if Carolina is going to win it, he's going to be the pick. Andrei Svechnikov has gotten hot. He leads the team in scoring, 8 goals for him, 20-1 odds at plus 2,000. couple others, Sebastian Aho leading the team in points throughout the last couple of seasons, plus 1,800. Seth Jarvis right there with Svechnikov, plus 2,000. Jacob Slavin, 50-1 at plus 5,000 on the Panthers side. The two Conn Smythe favorites from last year's final that were ousted by Connor McDavid are a little bit undervalued in the market here. Bobrovsky plus 1,400, Alexander Barkov plus 2,500. Sam Bennett leading the team in goal scoring. He's got 6 goals. He's 75-1 at plus 7,500. Matthew Tkachuk plus 3,000. Carter Verhaeghe plus 7,500, tied with Bennett. Brad Marchand, the longest on this list, at plus 10,100 to 100-1 odds. Timo, any of those speak to you out of those players listed?
Yeah, with if Florida wins, it's maybe tough to figure exactly who might come out of that. I mean, I mentioned that last year on social media, a lot of people thought that it was going to be Barkov winning the Conn Smythe. So if he puts in a good effort and they win, might the voters give it to Barkov after maybe a near miss for him last year? Maybe. I guess the odds that spoke to me the most out of the ones that you listed, maybe Svechnikov. Uh, not bad odds there, and he's been putting up a ton of goals and playing well. If he heats up for 2 series, who knows?
Timo's our game breaker on the stats, looking at these conference final breakdowns between the two teams. And let's get into it here. The series that's going to be a rematch of the 2023 Eastern Conference
Hmm.
final. Carolina swept in a 4-0 Panthers win in that series. Similar to the other time in the last 7 years, Carolina made the conference final. They are 0-8 in conference final games. This their third trip in the last 5 years, back to 2019, or last 7 years, excuse me. They're second in the last 3 years. And thinking back to that 2023 series, Matthew Tkachuk was the guy. Tkachuk
Hmm.
in a 4-3 game one, 4 overtime victory with the game winning goal. That was with 12.7 seconds left in overtime number 4. Almost went the distance to go a fifth. He also had the overtime game winner in game 2. It was a 2-1 Panthers victory. Panthers won 1-0 in game 3, and Matthew Tkachuk iced the series, winning with 4.7 seconds left in regulation in game 4, a 4-3 win again for the Panthers. 4 games, 4 1-goal games, and kind of a growing rivalry between these two
Yeah.
teams. It's always very physical. We saw a lot of physicality in the regular season. The Panthers took the regular season series this year 6-3, 6-0, the 2 wins on back-to-backs November 29th and 30th. The Hurricanes bounced back with a 3-1 win on
Yeah.
January 2nd. Timo, as we look regular season and postseason, talk through some of the stats that you have your eyes on here for this series.
Yeah, I mean, normally we would look at season series. I do like including that recent conference final. Obviously, super close. Must have been tearing your heart out there as a Hurricanes fan. I cannot imagine. I mean, for what it's worth, Matthew Tkachuk is struggling this playoffs to score. Probably banged up. So I would be surprised if he has 3 game winning goals this time around. But we would say advantage Florida as far as season series and as far as recent playoff matchups.
That was the series that led to the infamous Rod Brindamore "we didn't get swept" quote after losing 4-0 when they indeed did. But throughout the regular season, throughout the postseason thus far, one of the things that really stands out is the special teams difference. And Florida's special teams have not necessarily been as dominant as we would expect. The penalty kill, although we'll give it to them, number 2 in the postseason right now. But the power play has not quite been there. 10th out of the 16 teams in the
Mm.
postseason at 20%. Carolina's special teams have been one of the big reasons they've gotten to this point in just 10 games.
Yeah, special teams. I think we can look just overall and say that this is advantage Carolina. It's close. Um, in the regular season, Carolina power play was only 25th. I mean, they've been fourth in the playoffs so far. Small sample, and obviously you've only played against two teams, so uh, got to be a little bit careful looking at special teams numbers when it comes to the playoffs. But I think where I see the big advantage is both in the regular season and in the playoffs. Carolina has the number one penalty kill by far, and they've taken a 84% PK in the regular season and gone up to a 93% PK in the playoffs. And yes, small sample and all that. I'm sure over 100 playoff games it wouldn't be that good. But point is that the Carolina PK probably stands a good chance of shutting Florida down at least to an extent. So I would say on special teams, that is advantage Carolina close.
The goaltending is going to play a big part, and I hinted at Carolina needing Freddie Anderson to be the face of this series. Well, he's up against the defending Stanley Cup champion. Sergei Bobrovsky has led his team to back-to-back Stanley Cup final appearances. Although right now it's Anderson who's probably the hotter of the two
Yeah.
goaltenders coming into the series.
Yeah. I mean, he is the top goaltender in the playoffs with a 937 save percentage. That's obviously very good. 7-2. Um, and Bobrovsky, he was big in game seven and he's had his moments, but overall he's 8-4 and only 901 for save percentage. So very, very middling. And I would look back to the last two playoff runs for Florida as well. So going back to the season where Florida lost in the Cup final, Bob was a big factor there. He had a 915 save percentage, solidly above average. However, last season, despite obviously lifting the Stanley Cup, 906. So the numbers uh, would lean towards Freddie Anderson, but we know that Bob can have some magic in him. So in this case, I would say once again, advantage Carolina right now, but it's close.
Carolina's big hit the last few years in the playoffs has been the scoring going cold. Bobrovsky's had a few games looking a little bit shaky, and maybe that's just what Carolina needs to hop on. Again, thinking back to that 2023 conference final, 2-1 loss, just one goal scored, a 1-0 loss where they were shut out. So definitely, could be a big factor here. And if the goaltending stays hot, Carolina is going to have to find some way to find the back of the net. 5-on-5 numbers, a
Yeah.
big stat that you like to look at, Timo. Where are you putting the advantage here?
Yeah, this is something that analytics guys like looking at, right? Is 5-on-5, uh, because a lot of the game is played at 5-on-5, and also because you can um, tell how good a team is, how good a player is, that much easier at 5-on-5 when you have the larger sample. However, just looking at this matchup of Carolina and Florida, you might think just reflexively that it's got to be Carolina who's got the advantage here. And yes, of course they are first in Corsi percentage, or what I like to call SAT percentage, in the regular season and playoffs. However, the second team in the regular season was Florida. So close as far as shot attempts percentage. Um, Another stat that you can look at as far as 5-on-5 is goals for percentage. So at 5-on-5, out of all of the goals scored on the ice, what percentage of those are for your team? And so in that, actually, Carolina was just, despite that SAT percentage advantage, Carolina was just slightly over 50% in goals for percentage at 51% in the regular season. Florida better at 52.7%. So looking at those two stats, I would say that this is even. 5-on-5, look for an even series here.
Coaching battle, the two bench bosses, again, defending Cup champion Paul Maurice, who finally got his Stanley Cup, after 27 seasons behind the bench in the NHL. Rod Brind'Amour in his seventh season, 7 consecutive playoffs made, the first coach in NHL history to advance past the first round in all of his first 7 coaching seasons. Paul Maurice with 12 seasons out of his 27 that he's made the playoffs. Looking at the playoff records, Maurice 70-67, Rod Brind'Amour 46-38. The glaring difference, Brind'Amour looking for his first Stanley Cup as a coach, has won as a player when he was the captain of the team he currently coaches, the Carolina
Right.
Hurricanes. Interesting stat that stands out to me with just 7 seasons for Brind'Amour, 27 for Maurice. They are tied in series wins, both with 10. Anything in the coaching differences that stands out to you? Obviously, Maurice a little bit more decorated.
Yeah, Maurice, before he became the Florida coach here and made it to the Cup final and won one now, he's I don't know, he's the NHL coaching version of a compiler. Somebody who gets into the Hall of Fame in their sport by just hanging around for a long time and putting up some stats. And he's up there in games and losses and numbers like that all time. So on the other hand, go back, he actually coached the Hartford Whalers. I mean, think about that. And he was a really young guy when that happened, but he's been around a long time and he hasn't had a flagship team very often. So can you blame him for that? Regardless, Paul Maurice, and let's be clear here, it's not just the head coach, it's a coaching staff. This coaching staff has made 2 cup finals. They have won the Stanley Cup. So that has got to be an advantage for them. However, like you say, Brind'Amour has had tremendous success in 7 seasons with Carolina, and he's looked at by a lot of coaches on different levels as an innovator and a motivator. So, um, you know, Younger does not have that decoration, but he's a rising star. He's a risen star already. I look at the coaching matchup as even.
We've pretty much across the board said it's tough to decipher between the statistics. Time to throw out our series predictions. This one thing that we're unanimous in, which might be a bit of a surprise after the way we just ran through those stats. But I'll go first here. I've got Florida in 7 games. I think the tight knit, minute differences between the stats is going to make this series go the difference. The one hit on Brind'Amour and his time with the Hurricanes has been that they haven't been able to get over that hump, as you mentioned, and a lot of that comes down to the lack of scoring. A lot of hate on the man-to-man defense. We'll see if that can, finally get past this Florida team. I think Florida has the experience. Florida has I really think the depth and really stole the show at the deadline. The pickups of Marchand, Seth Jones, who just had a legacy game there
Mm.
in Game 7 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. All those factors are going to be the reason I'm taking the Panthers. I think the depth is just going to get it done. That veteran experience. Florida in 7 for me at plus 440. Timo, how about you?
Yeah, I'll throw in 2 more factors that we haven't talked about yet. One is kind of an elephant in the room, is the fact that Freddie Anderson has had a recent injury history in the playoffs. Um, I'm not going to predict an injury for Freddie Anderson, but he might be more susceptible to that than other goalies. So if that happens, that's a disaster for Carolina. The other thing I would point at is the physicality of Florida. We mentioned that in the previous round, their tops in the NHL in hits by a lot in the regular season. Carolina is down towards the bottom, so physicality in a longer series may start wearing on Carolina. I like Florida as well. I'm going to pick them in 6 instead of 7. So I think we're not exactly in lockstep, but pretty close.
I want to give a big thank you to Connor DeRue assisting our show, digging through the trenches to find some depth stats that help you craft our plays. We're back tomorrow with our Western Conference final ahead of game one between Edmonton and Dallas, and we'll preview that series again. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. We tweet out all of our game by game picks here. Timo, how are you celebrating game one of the conference finals?
Is there a celebration? I don't know. I am just going to, I'm just going to sit on my couch and focus really hard on the game. No, actually, I'm just going to sit on my couch and watch the game. So, yeah.
One thing that we can keep as a guarantee if you were betting where Timo's going to be watching the game, couch is a pretty significant lock. Probably not great odds on that one, though.
Yeah. All right.
Again, every day here, daily shows on the Frozen Edge podcast, helping you craft your picks, props, and parlays, stat-based analysis behind the NHL's betting market. He's Timo Seppa. I'm Casey Ditzel. Until next time, have a good one, everybody.